What would you do if you could access your entire brain, learn a new language overnight, predict every move in the stock market, or even move objects with your mind? We've heard that magical phrase for years: humans only use 10% of their brains. Is the remaining 90% just waiting to be unlocked like a hidden treasure chest?
All right, today we're diving into one of the most popular, most persistent myths out there. You know the one I'm talking about. It's all about that incredible supercomputer sitting right inside your skull. I mean, just think about it for a second. What if you could actually unlock that dormant 90% of your brain? You could probably learn a new language overnight, right? Maybe predict the entire stock market? It's such a cool idea, isn't it? This hidden superpower just waiting for us to flip a switch. You've definitely heard this one before. It's everywhere. You see it in big Hollywood movies like Limitless or Lucy. You read it in self-help books that promise to unlock all your hidden potential. But is there any actual, science behind it? Or is our brain working a lot harder than this myth gives it credit for? So, let's get into it. Where did this huge idea even come from? Well, it turns out it's a classic case of a little misunderstanding that just kind of spiraled out of control. Yeah, this thing didn't just pop out of a single scientific study. It was more like a long, slow game of telephone that played out over decades. It kicked off with a pretty vague statement about human potential. Then, someone slapped Einstein's name on it to make it sound legit. And finally, a super popular book turned it into that hard 10% number we all know today. And this right here is the heart of the whole mix-up. William James was basically being a motivational speaker. He was talking about our potential as people, not making some scientific statement about unused brain cells. But his general inspiring idea got twisted and repackaged into this super specific and, totally wrong biological fact. And look, let's be real. The reason this myth has such staying power, it's an amazing marketing tool. It's so appealing. It tells you, hey, your limitations, not your fault. You've just got 90% of your genius still snoozing. It's basically selling hope in a bottle. And who wouldn't want to buy that? Okay, so enough about pop culture. Let's switch gears and talk about some hard biology. Because the first big nail in the coffin for the 10% myth comes from, believe it or not, evolution. And it all boils down to one thing: energy. So first, let's just get our bearings. Your brain, it's actually pretty small physically. It only makes up about 2% of your total body weight. But as you're about to see, you should never judge a book by its cover. But check out the bill for that tiny little organ. It is an absolute energy hog. It burns through a whopping 20% of your body's total oxygen and calories. Seriously, think about that. 1/5 of everything you eat goes straight to powering your brain. Now, from an evolutionary point of view, that is a huge deal. Natural selection is all about efficiency. It's ruthless. There is no way it would let us spend 20% of our precious energy just to maintain an organ that's 90% asleep? No chance. A smaller, more efficient brain would have taken over millions of years ago. That massive energy bill is all the proof you need that the whole thing is working, and working hard. Okay, so the evolutionary math just doesn't work. But what about now? What happens when we actually peek inside a living, thinking brain? Well, thanks to amazing tech like fMRIs and PET scans, we don't have to guess. We can literally watch it in action. And what we see is crystal clear. There are no dark spots, no unused areas. In fact, just by sitting there listening to me, your brain is firing on all cylinders. Your temporal lobe is processing my voice. Your occipital lobe is looking at the screen. Every part has a job to do. There are no slackers in the brain. Now, hold on. This doesn't mean every single one of your 86 billion neurons is firing all at once. That would be chaos. It would basically be a massive seizure. It's more like an orchestra. You use all the instruments, just not all at the exact same time to play the exact same note. It's all about coordination. So why did anyone ever think parts were unused? Well, Early on, researchers would stimulate parts of the brain, and if a muscle didn't twitch, they'd call it a silent area. But here's the thing, they weren't silent. They were just the managers, the CEOs of the brain. They're the parts that handle higher level stuff like thinking and making decisions. They don't just move your leg, they decide if and why you should move it. And the most tragic, but also the most conclusive evidence against this myth comes from brain injuries. Think about it. If 90% of our brain was just spare parts, most brain damage wouldn't be a big deal. But we all know that's not true. Even tiny millimeter-sized damage can completely devastate someone's ability to speak or remember things. There are simply no spare parts in the brain. Okay, so if we can't just flip a switch and unlock some hidden 90%, does that mean we're just stuck with what we've got? No way! Absolutely not, because our brain's real superpower is actually way cooler and way more interesting. See, our potential isn't about unused space. It's about the brain's amazing ability to change, to adapt, to literally rewire itself. The magic word here is neuroplasticity, and that is the real source of learning anything new. Your brain isn't some fixed hard drive you were born with. It's a living, breathing network that's constantly changing. So when you learn a new skill, say playing the guitar, you're not activating some dormant part of your brain. What you're actually doing is building new connections between your neurons. It's like forging a new path in a forest. And the more you practice, the more you walk that path, the wider and faster it gets. You are literally physically changing the structure of your own brain. And if you want some incredible real-world proof, look no further than London taxi drivers. There was a famous study that showed the drivers who had memorized the city's insane map, we're talking 25,000 streets, actually had a physically larger hippocampus, which is the memory center of the brain. They didn't unlock anything, they grew the part of the brain they were using through sheer practice. So let's wrap this up. When you look at all the evidence together, the evolutionary argument, the brain scans, the tragic data from brain injuries, and what we now know about neuroplasticity, they all point in the exact same direction. The case is pretty much closed. So yeah, it is definitely time to put this myth to bed, once and for all. I get it, it's a cool story, but it's just not true. You're not using 10% of your brain. You are using 100% of your brain. Right now, every single part of it is part of this amazing, complex system that makes you, well, you. And that really brings us to the final, most important point. The real question isn't, how do I access more of my brain? The real question is, how do I better train the 100% I'm already using? That's the real challenge, and honestly, the most exciting opportunity of all.